Yo, what is up? It's Jeff Nowak. I'm here with Steve Geller. We're about to record the post-game edition of Saints-Seahawks.
A winning edition.
Yeah, I'm just glad it's about a win. I was so tired about talking about losing football teams. I mean, it's just not fun. It's not fun for anybody. So I'm excited. We're just going to kind of vamp here for a couple minutes, let people find us. But yeah, we're going to get into a lot. We're going to get into Taysom Hill. We're going to get into Alvin Kamara, who might have had the quietest 200-yard performance I've ever seen. We're going to get into the fact that I don't think they played that well today. We're going to do a lot of that. But first things first, it's just finally, right?
Finally, but unfortunately, too, I know we're going to get into the injury front as well. Two big ones. You could put Hardy in there as well, but with Olave going down with the concussion and then Lattimore with the abdomen injury, that it just a lot of big names for this team on the banged up list.
Yeah, we'll get into that. But we're also just so you're aware, we're going to get into a lot of this stuff, and then we're going to do kind of a live mailbag in the back half after the first break. So if you have any questions, comments, whatever, throw them in the chat. And we're going to get to them. I am still at the Dome. Unfortunately, you can't tell because the only way I can set up here is with this barrier behind me. But I am in case anyone walks over and tries to clean up, that's they're getting ready to go home. While
they won't let you sit on the bench on the field.
They probably would, but I don't know how I'd get my laptop down there.
And the internet's terrible down there, so never mind.
In case anyone doesn't believe me, there you go. Here's the field. I am still up here, but my webcam
up the dome.
My webcam does not handle the fluorescent lighting in here very well at all.
Yeah.
You would think you were sitting looking directly into the sun. But all right, Steve, you ready to get going?
Yeah, and shout out to VP Sells Pell's Lady saying, "Hey, Jeff and Steve."
VB Saints Pell's Lady. Yeah, well, she's one of our regulars. We have regulars. I do wonder how people are going to react to this game. Just because this is not how you should have won this game. You should have won it a lot differently. But all right, yeah. Let's get going.
Right.
Do you want to lead us in here?
Sure. Welcome inside Black and Gold, a Week 5 winning edition. So happy to be reporting on the 3-game losing skid snapped. I'm Steve Geller, along with my buddy Jeff Nowak, who is still sitting in the Superdome.
Yes. I am sitting in this very, very gigantic and quiet building. They were bumping some Britney Spears and NSYNC for about an hour after the game. That was kind of a weird thing. Yeah, I mean, I was bopping to it. I was having a good time. They Hit Me One More Time, and I was like, yeah, that's it. But no, I mean, this was a wild game. There's so much to talk about from this game. We're going to get into a lot of it. We're going to get into Taysom Hill. We're going to get into Alvin Kamara, who might have had the quietest 200-yard rushing or not 200-yard performance of all time. I mean, I looked down. I was like, oh, he must have a lot of yards today. And I looked at the box score and I was like, oh, he has 184 total yards, and then he ran for another 10 yards, and it was 194. What? When did that happen? But there was so many yards in this game. There was just so much yardage, so many possessions, so many just bad plays by both teams, right? The Saints, while they played slightly better, slightly cleaner, I still think they played very, very, very haphazardly. It was not disciplined, but the Seahawks actually managed to be worse in that regard, and that's why they lost today and the Saints won. It was it's for the second time this season. It was a competition to see who wanted to lose the most, and the Seahawks won. Yeah, we're gonna get to that, but first we got to talk about Taysom Hill, right? It felt like Taysom Hill was gonna win this game single-handedly. It was just a matter of whether the defense let him or not. That's how it felt.
Yeah, he definitely, you want to say, put the team on his back today, whatever the case. But, just getting it done on the ground. Finally, we got to see him throw a pass. We were just complaining about, the fact that they've been setting up.
I wasn't complaining.
I was definitely. I was like, we need to see you throw a pass already. And what do you know? It was a touchdown. Tight end to tight end. And we saw Taysom Hill throwing to Adam Troutman. But yeah, just a really dominant performance. I expected that on the ground, honestly, from Alvin Kamara, who still had a great day, minus, so, another turnover for this team gets added on to their, season total. But overall, just that kind of wild performance you needed from somebody on this squad to take control and really run away with a victory.
Yeah, you want to talk about efficiency. Here's Taysom Hill's numbers. 9 carries, 112 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pass for 22 yards, and another touchdown. That's when you can have 10 touches for 134 yards and 4 touchdowns, you're having a pretty solid day. And that's just like the luxury of Taysom Hill, right?
And when Hardy went down, he had to do kick returns.
Yeah, and he recovered. Well, okay, so this was a point of confusion during the game, and I think they have cleared it up, which that was not a fumble by the punter. And they called it right on the field, and then they adjusted it and said that the punter for the Seahawks, when he did that weird rugby-style rollout.
So awkward.
Yeah, it was just weird, and I think, like, he just got nervous and didn't know what to do. But he went down with the ball. Like, he got tackled with the ball, but it was a turnover on downs regardless. So, like, Taysom Hill didn't actually get a fumble recovery. It's only a factor because, like, we're going to talk about all the things he did today, and he didn't actually recover a fumble, or he didn't cover a Seahawks fumble, but he did recover his own fumble. So technically, he still has a fumble recovery. But yeah, I mean, pretty much the only thing he didn't do today was catch a pass, which when we went to the season, everyone was like, TE1, Taysom's going to be the top tight end on the Saints. He doesn't catch passes. He runs. He's the running quarterback, and I love it.
That's unstoppable. QB power is coming, like we've talked about too, and they can't stop it.
Yeah, and when I told people to draft Taysom Hill in fantasy, it was not based on his pass catching. It was going to be based on his ability to vulture touchdowns, and that's exactly what he did today, and it's what he's done all season. He has 6 touchdowns. We talked before the season, and I said it is not impossible for Taysom Hill to have double-digit touchdowns this season. And I think when I said that, people looked at me like I had 3 heads. But, like, this is the type of game that I was thinking about when I said that. Like, he racks them up. He could have double-digit touchdowns by bye week. Like, I mean, it's
definitely
insane.
Not a bye week, for sure.
He might, at this rate, he'll have double-digit touchdowns by week 7.
Let's keep the Taysom train going for sure, because whatever it was, this offense definitely needed that shot in the arm. And there's a lot of talk now, maybe this squad's finally finding their identity. And Adam Troutman even mentioned in the locker room after the game, he's like, the identity of this offense is running the football.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's happened the last 2 games, really. And we've been clicking. I mean, first drive of the first 3 games were all pretty solid. I know the third one we ended in a turnover, but yeah, we're finding our identity. And I mean, it's to run the ball right now, and then opens up play action. I know that's a super efficient pass for us. So, yeah, we're performing our identity for sure.
Yeah, and you had about 300 yards of rushing today. All said. Let's see.
48 carries. I had to rub my eyes on that one. I was like, wait a minute. The Saints ran the ball 48 times?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It wasn't 300 yards. It was, let's see, 115. I'm getting like texts and my phone is exploding, or my computer is exploding. Okay. 115. Mark Ingram had 16 yards on 9 carries. Andy Dalton had 4 yards on 7 carries. So all said, that is
235.
45. Yes, 235 rushing yards. And this is a team that wasn't able to run the ball earlier in the season, and you didn't have Alvin Kamara. And while Alvin, the fumble was frustrating, and it came at a very inopportune time, and it was just another example of every time something is going well, something bad happens, and then you double down, right?
Right.
And not only does Alvin fumble and cost you a sure chance at a field goal, you allow a touchdown, not just a field goal, a touchdown on the comeback drive by the Seahawks. And, part of that is you don't have Marcus May. You have Justin Evans and JT Gray playing these way bigger roles than you expected them to. And they got burned twice by Tyler Lockett over the top. Great throws by Geno Smith. But like this, you see this week after week after week, and it's not gone, right? There were several moments where you were like, okay, bad penalty. you get burned on the defensive end.
Yeah.
Right? There was that Marshawn Lattimore defensive pass interference, and immediately you have the Tyler Lockett touchdown, right? That this happened several times. That Jawan Johnson false start, which I disagree with, was immediately followed by that 69-yard Kenneth Walker touchdown run, which should never happen. It should never happen. And so, the Saints played well today, I think, on the offensive side of the ball. They did not play well in coverage at all, outside of Marshawn Lattimore, who did go down with an injury late in the game, but I think he locked down DK Metcalf about as well as you can. And it's just always fun to watch him in those matchups. But, I want to be encouraged. And, I think the ability to just, whenever you're in third and short, to have the, it's a free money. I mean, how confident must you be in 3rd and 2, 3rd and 1 to just send Lewis Kidd and Landon Young out there as pass eligible linemen? You had 2 pass eligible linemen. So it's like a mega jumbo. And it's like, you said this last week. It's like, oh, they know you're going to run. It's like, great, stop it. And they haven't. I actually asked Taysom about that. And this is what he had to say. Oh, wait, did I upload the wrong one? Damn it, I did. Hold on one second.
Big shout out to the return of Andrews Pete as well. Really helped with the team run game. I feel a lot. He's mocked a lot for maybe his pass protection, but man, such a grader on the run game, was so effective.
Yeah, he was good today.
And obviously you did put that pass today, but when you run Lewis and Landon out there, you're going mega jumbo. It's pretty clear what you're trying to do. And what is it? How much confidence does that give you as an offense when you can kind of project? It's like, we're going at you, and you can still improve like that.
Yeah, a lot of confidence. We talk about it. We carry plays like that every week, and we say, man, we're gonna stay the course until somebody shows us that we can stop it. And again, those guys come in and they've done such a great job up front to spring me for a lot of runs, a lot of touchdowns, and it's obviously challenging to stop with some of this QB run stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, he said it right there. It's like, until you prove you can stop it, we're going to keep doing it. And they just kept doing it. They were 8 for 14 on 3rd down today. The Seahawks were 1 for 9. That is the difference in this game. That is why the Saints won and the Seahawks lost. Because every time the Saints were able to get in manageable down and distance on 3rd down, which they did a very good job today. That was, if you want to look at one thing where the Saints won this game, it was third down efficiency, and it was staying ahead of the chains. A majority of those 3rd downs were 3rd and 5 or shorter. And, a handful of those, I think 2 of their failures on 3rd down were 3rd and 5. So even those are reasonable, right? You weren't looking at 3rd and 18, 3rd and 25, 3rd and 7 even. That is a big difference when you're talking about, the Seahawks were only able to extend one drive that they saw a 3rd down in. Think about that. In a game where they scored 32 points. They didn't have extended drives. And I think that's part of the reason the Saints were able to assert themselves later in the game, right? Alvin Kamara is able to run the ball suddenly, because they left their defense on the field the whole game. It's what the Saints have been doing to their defense all day. And in this game, they were the ones that were able to close it out on the defensive side of the ball. So, yeah, I mean, there was so many positive things to take away from the running game. Not as many in the passing game, but Andy Dalton did his job. He did it as well as you could have hoped. He had that one rough interception that, the defense made sure didn't hurt. But, when it's rolling that well on the running game, you can live with some so-so passing when you're talking about a team that did not have Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, Deontay Hardy went out, Chris Olave caught a touchdown, and then he went out with a concussion. You needed to win this game, and you did. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and obviously you talked about Olave there going down with the concussion. Just a huge concern now for this wide receiving group. Obviously, Jarvis Landry couldn't go today, still with that ankle issue. So, your top 3 guys are all banged up in some shape or form right now, and are a question heading into next week. You would hope that, Landry seemed like he was close going into this game. So hopefully some more added rest for him. He'll be able to come back with the Olave. You got to hope the concussion is nothing serious. Maybe is able to clear protocol and get back onto the field. I know leaving the game seemed very in high spirits, if you would say, still high-fiving a fan on the way out. I know Dennis Allen mentioned it as well, that he seemed in good spirits in the locker room, very happy the team got the win. And then the other guy, Michael Thomas, man, I don't know what to make of his latest with the toe injury. You hear that he might be able to return soon. And obviously, the healthier this team can be, we see what they're able to do as a banged up squad in these games. A fully healthy Saints team, especially on this offense, is just so lethal and dangerous. I think, obviously, looking forward to seeing that on the field, including the return of Jameis Winston as well, just because while Andy Dalton, I feel, did a decent job managing this game, Jameis Winston does bring that bigger arm, bigger threat to your team. But obviously, you can also have that bigger chance, I guess you would say, of turning the ball over, because he's more of a riskier passer, if you would say.
I suppose. I don't know. I do. Well, so before the game, Adam Schefter tweeted that Mike Thomas is, they're hopeful that he can be out there next week. So, that's a positive. You were facing the Bengals. You were going to have to keep pace.
Yeah.
You don't know where Jameis is in his rehab process, but, it is strange. He was able to play 2 weeks, and then suddenly, you're not able to get him out there. And I'm not sure what to make of that. But hold on one second. I have to plug in. This is why I don't do this on the road. And I mean, the offense has looked solid. I think it's improving. But I don't know what the ceiling is for this team. You will need to be better passing the ball to get where you need to go. Whether that's Andy Dalton or Jameis Winston, I don't know. This is a positive thing that you're able to get off the losing skid one way or another.
Amen.
As you look at next week and you figure it out, if Jameis is healthy, I think he's going to be the guy. But the question is, what level of health does Jameis need to be at before you feel comfortable putting him out there? Because based on what we've seen, I am not comfortable putting him out there at 60%, 70%. He would have to be very close to 100% to go out there, in my opinion, knowing that you feel comfortable putting Andy out there, right? Like, it's not a concern to put Andy Dalton in these games. It is a concern to send a guy out there with a broken back. The thing with Chris Olave, if this had come in week 1 before, this national reckoning on head injuries again, right?
That, right.
And they kind of have revamped their concussion protocols. If you watch that replay, Chris Olave was unconscious. Like, you can see that he went out after he caught that ball. Like, the way he got tackled,
vicious slam. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't just that he went down on his head. It went down like straight on his head, like straight down. It was like a jackhammer, and you could just see like lights out. And he laid there for a while. I was worried. It was weird because no one was really reacting immediately. It was like almost like because at first I thought maybe he went down and was just like mad that he dropped the ball because the ball did squirt out, and I thought maybe he was just laying there like angry at himself, but then he didn't get up, and eventually he did kind of get up on his own, but in those instances, usually I think because it's not in the end zone, it's like in the middle of the field, there would have been like a much heftier reaction. Everyone would be running out there. Everyone was kind of looking and walking around. And then he was able to get off the field on his own power, right? He wasn't stretchered off, which is a good thing. But
when he did get up too, he wasn't seem like the legs were wobbly. He didn't seem shaky walking off at all.
Yeah. But I think this league right now, they have a black eye, and anytime the league gets a black eye on something, they're going to overreact. They're going to overcorrect. And I think it's going to be real hard for him to clear the protocol with what you saw. But who knows? I don't know what his history with head injuries is. If the first time you get a concussion, it's usually easier to get over it, and it gets worse and worse. So, we'll see. But it was a nice thing that they at least gave him the touchdown. because that should have been a touchdown, and they ruled it a touchdown. But it reminded me, if you remember that Saints-Bears game in the Superdome, Zach Miller, I think it was 2016, maybe 2017. Zach Miller, the tight end, caught a ball in the end zone, and like his knee snapped. Like he had to go to the hospital. Like he almost lost his leg. And it was like tragic because it was like a career-ending injury, and they called it a touchdown, and then they took it away on review, and I was like, this guy just died. You just give him the touchdown. Like, oh man,
he just shredded his knee.
And the worst part, and it was the same thing for this one, was like, because it was under review, they had to keep showing this replay in the stadium. And like, this one wasn't as bad, obviously, but I remember that one vividly. And it was like, guys, cut this. Only the refs need to see this 20 times. You don't need to keep replaying this gruesome injury. And in this case, it was, you could just see him kind of go lights out. But, you hope for him, for his sake, that it looked a lot worse than it was, because this is a kid who is the odds-on favorite to be Rookie of the Year, right? The only thing that will slow him down at this point, it seems like, is a significant injury that forces him to miss time. So hopefully that's not what we have, and hopefully the Saints can build on this win, because I think at a certain level, losing is contagious and losing is habitual.
For sure.
And once you get comfortable losing, once you get used to losing, it becomes a lot easier to lose and lose and lose and lose, right? One of the things that's made this team great is they don't fall into these long-term losing skids. Like, they lose a game, they find a way to bounce back. They lose 2 games, they find a way to fix their issues and bounce back. Hopefully that's what this team is able to do this year.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, got to get now onto this winning streak. You have a tough matchup, obviously, next week coming up with Joe Burrow and the Bengals coming into town, and that offense, is has the ability to put up points and fast with the amount of talent they have on that side of the ball. And the big concern for me is obviously Olave's injury, but also with Marshawn Lattimore. After the play, he comes over to the sideline and immediately just collapsed on the side there, right by the bench area, and was fighting trainers for a while about going into the injury tent. Then finally,
Steve, let me cut you off. Let's go to break.
Okay.
And then let's get into that in the second segment, and we'll get into more on what you saw there. I just think we're already like at the tail end here. So gotcha. I'd like to just kind of start fresh with that. But
sounds good.
All right, let's cut it off there. You're listening to Inside Black and Gold, brought to you by the Lamarck Automotive Complex. There must be a reason. Stick around. We're going to get into more of what happened with Marshawn Lattimore with that injury late in the game, what Steve saw down on the sideline. And we're going to get into more of, what we saw from Alvin Kamara today, because I think that his performance was huge, even if he didn't get to the end zone. So stick around. And we're back here on Inside Black and Gold, brought to you by the Lamarck Automotive Complex. There must be a reason. We're going to get into a mailbag at the tail end of this segment and the final segment. So make sure you get your questions, comments, whatever in the chat, and we'll get to them. But first, Marshawn Lattimore, there was a few injuries in this game that you're going to have to watch throughout the week and could be huge going forward just because of the impact these players have had. One we got into with Chris Olave, right? Deontay Hardy got hurt. He hasn't really had an impact to this point. So, it's not, I thought Marquez Callaway actually had more juice in the return game than Hardy has shown the last few weeks. So, I'm not overly concerned with if you have to be without him. But Marshawn Lattimore went down late in this game. It didn't hurt the Saints in this game, but man, that would be a huge blow if he misses time. What did you see from him there with that abdomen injury?
Yeah, when he came to the sideline, you could definitely see the visible pain he was in. Seemed to be grabbing his stomach, and I wasn't sure at first if he was just like cradling his arm maybe, or if it was that core stomach area. But when he came over to the bench, didn't even make it to the bench, just collapsed onto the turf area, and you could just tell he was writhing, the look in his eye and everything. the guy was just in a ton of pain and was fighting off the trainers, didn't want to go into the injury tent. Finally, they did, persuade him in and said, you got to get in there to get, looked at. And afterwards, after an extended stay in the tent, finally got out, made his way to the locker room. And then, we got word about it was confirmed indeed a abdomen injury. And obviously a huge concern for this team just because that's your number one corner. He's going to be shadowing the top guys on the opposing team. And there's a tough matchup coming up in the Cincinnati Bengals. And it's someone that you definitely don't want to be without. But at this point, obviously, not looking good just because of the pain you saw that I saw him in, at least from the injury. But hopefully it's something that it's not as serious as it looks.
So I didn't catch the injury live. It was late in the game. I was trying to write. And so I just kind of saw that he was out of the game. And, but when did the injury occur? Like, did it happen during a play?
The touchdown, who's the touchdown to? He went down in the end zone and stayed down for a little bit, but got up and he was just, you could tell, in pain, kind of hunched over and getting as fast as he could to the sideline and just didn't even make it to the bench. Like I said, just collapsed on the ground there. And it was definitely rough to see and concerning. I'm trying to look here on the scoring plays.
Well, the last TD, the last touchdown was the one on
the Lockett.
Yeah, so the last touchdown was the Kenneth Murray run. The long touchdown to Lockett was before that because the Saints went ahead 31-19, and then the Seahawks came back and led 32-31. And that's why at that point, that's why the Taysom Hill didn't just have a huge game. That was the Saints were in danger of blowing this game until you got to 3rd and short, and he just broke that, and you could see it coming from a mile away. The second he got through the line, he started high stepping. But yeah, I mean, the injuries could cast a pall over this, and so hopefully it was just a cramp. Hopefully it wasn't anything significant. He and DK Metcalf were going hard all game. They were just it's just another one of these knockdown drag out matchups that Marshawn finds himself in, and honestly, Marshawn thrives in. It's exactly what happened last year in the sense that, last year with the second drive, DK Metcalf had, I want to say it was an 84-yard touchdown catch where Marshawn kind of stumbled. Today, on the opening drive, it was Paulson Adebo kind of in primary coverage. They ran a pick play. Paulson got lost in traffic, and then DK went for a 50-yard touchdown. But I mean, the rest of the game, he finished with 5 catches for 88 yards. So after that play, he had 4 catches for 33 yards and a fumble. He got shut down. And that's what Marshawn gives you. So, hopefully this is a situation where, we're not talking about this at this time next week. But yeah, when you see a guy go down like that, it's always concerning.
Yeah. And like I said, for him, another tough guy on this team, just to be writhing so much and just visibly in so much discomfort and just a weird injury to, an abdomen issue. I would like to see the replay on it. I haven't really looked that over, but we'll definitely check out what exactly happened to him on that Lockett touchdown.
Yeah, I think the coverage struggled on the back end because you were trying to press a lot. You were trying to, especially so on that touchdown before the half, the Saints are in press coverage because they're expecting the Seahawks to try to get 3-4 yards. Like I had a few people come and say well, why were the Saints in man? Why weren't they, playing a picket fence? It was because you were trying to keep them off the board, right? They were at about the 50-yard line. You're like, okay, if we can stop them from getting 5-10 yards, we can keep them off the board. Instead, the Seahawks smartly go for it all. Geno Smith has a really good deep ball. I did not know that about Geno Smith until today. He has a really pretty deep ball, and they took advantage of it. Tyler Lockett is about as good. If I had to comp Chris Olave to anybody, it might be Tyler Lockett. They're very similar players. I think Chris Olave has more intermediate skills, but Tyler Lockett has great ball skills downfield, right? He's a guy who you want to target deep. He's a guy who you probably wouldn't mind pairing Jameis Winston with if you ended up going that route. But you ended up with JT Gray playing deep safety, Paulson Adebo, who I think struggled today.
Yes.
He's a guy who I think we're kind of learning about as we go. He wants to be physical. When he doesn't kind of get that initial jam, he doesn't have top end speed, right? So when he gets in trail, he has a hard time making up the space, and that's what happened on both those plays, right? He got beat over the top, and you don't have a true center fielder anymore with Marcus Williams out of town. Even if Marcus May was there, he's not a real center fielder, and so that's what happened on that first one. And I think it's similar to what happened on that second one. You know, you're playing over the top, and Tyler Lockett is just beating you downfield, and you got to be better than that. But I forgot where you're going with. What were we talking about?
Marshawn.
No, we're past Marshawn.
Oh, okay. You went on to Adebo. Sorry.
Yeah. And so, you know, I think if you are forced to put Adebo in these top end matchups, you could struggle, and that would kind of move everything down the line. You would end with Roby on the opposite side, and you know, I think Paulson Adebo is a very good cornerback. I don't think he's ready to be on an island against the Jamar Chases of the world and against the DK Metcalfs of the world. So, yeah, I mean, the offense looked good today. They were able to put up points. You know, if you're suddenly without your star cornerback, you might have to put up points. And against a team like the Bengals, you know, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and we get to see some Sunday night football, them taking on the Baltimore Ravens. So early scouting report on the Bungles. Hopefully we see them.
The Bungholes?
Yeah, hopefully we see them in less than prime form, less than Super Bowl form when they do come to the Superdome. I thought this game would definitely be a prime time matchup, considering, you know, Joe Burrow coming back to Louisiana as well.
Yeah, they didn't put any Saints games in prime time. They don't even have a Sunday night football game this year. They have 2 Monday night football games.
And the Thursday night, but yeah, no Sunday night.
Yeah, they had a Sunday morning. Does that count?
I guess so, right? That's their
They
rationale.
also play on New Year's Day, so that's kind of fun.
Yay.
But you know, as Jerry, we're gonna get into the kind of the mailbag now in the second half, and then we're gonna throw your comments, questions in there, and we'll really get into it in the next segment. But what Jerry Pore here says, which I think is correct, I'd rather an ugly win than a pretty loss.
Sure.
And by all means, right? I love getting Taysom in the game and just junking it up. You know, it's not pretty. It's ugly, but that's what makes it fun, right? And that's what you had today. But
what made it ugly too was just the defense, letting Seattle have so many easy touchdowns or long plays that they gave up. That, you know, it was like 3-4 play drives, and boom, Seattle's in the end zone. Just when you seem to be building some momentum, there was always something that kind of retracted from the positive on the offensive side.
Yeah, hold on. I think someone posted it. I might have seen it somewhere else. I think the Seahawks scored on 4 or fewer plays like 5 times. Like, they didn't have extended drives. That first drive was probably their longest one, and they had a 50-yard touchdown. Like, their scores were from down the field. And you know, that's if you have to allow a score, I prefer it happens that way, right? Like, the worst case scenario is a team goes down and runs a 10-play drive and then punches it into the end zone, because not only are you know, tiring out your defense, you are not preventing points, and then, you know, you're taking time off the clock away from your offense. At least if, like, that was the thing you could say is like, okay, the Saints gave the ball back to the Seahawks, and then they immediately allow a 69-yard touchdown. At least that puts the Seahawks defense back on the field and, you know, gives the Saints plenty of time to operate. That was the only positive you could pull out of what happened with that Kenneth Walker touchdown. The lights just went up.
They're telling you something.
Now it's real dark. But yeah, I think the big play, the number of big scoring plays the Saints have allowed this year is concerning. You don't want to be the team that, you know, can't lock down in key moments, because the opposing team can always go over the top, right? Or can always
Yeah.
hit big. You have Laviska Shenault in week 2, right?
Oh,
In
that
week
one made me
4,
so sick.
in week 4, it was that Justin Jefferson bomb when you just needed to clamp and get the ball back to your offense in a tie game. Today, you went up 31-19 and bang, 40-yard touchdown to Tyler Lockett. Bang, 69-yard rushing touchdown to Kenneth Walker. Like, that can't be the identity of your defense. And this is a team that has struggled in so many aspects of just being a consistent team. I thought they cleaned up the penalties today, and I think that if you wanted to pull a silver lining out of allowing 32 points and having to really push yourself to come out with this game, it was there was a lot fewer dumb penalties, right? There was some penalties will happen, but there weren't any that you're just like hitting yourself over the head for. There weren't a ton of boneheaded holding calls. There weren't a ton of silly defensive holding penalties. There was one against Paulson Adebo away from the play that was probably a boneheaded play, and he had a rough first quarter. He had a rough game, but I think that they did a good job of cleaning that up. They had the 2 turnovers. There's the Alvin Kamara turnover is inexcusable. The Andy Dalton interception, I think I put that slightly on Traquan. I don't think he fought back to the ball enough. Like, you're going to throw interceptions when you throw into coverage. And in that situation, you're throwing it and you're hoping that Traquan can work back to the ball. And it's either it's incomplete or a catch. And if he can't get to it, he has to play defense. He did none of those things. He kind of just allowed himself to be covered. And then the guy worked over the top of him. I think it was Tariq Woolen, and got that interception. It's tough to hate the throw. Like, if you want to blame Andy Dalton, you blame him for trusting Traquan in that moment, because Trey, he had a rough day. I think he missed 2 pretty easy third down conversions. They kind of just bounced off his hands. But he did have a big catch on that final drive as they were trying to ice the game. So you don't really have options at wide receiver right now, but you have to start wondering if Traquan's job is getting close, because you've called up Keith Kirkwood today. They do very similar things. So yeah,
and when you really hear about anything positive about Traquan, it's not for his receiving ability, it's for his run blocking ability, and obviously not exactly what you want from a wide receiver. Going back to those deep play issues, the big chunk plays, I wonder how much of it could be still communication issues in the secondary, because that was something I was worried about going into the year when you lost a guy like Malcolm Jenkins to retirement. It seemed like when he did come and join the New Orleans squad, because he went to Philadelphia after being drafted by the Saints. But when he came back, really seemed to solidify things on that back end, and you didn't have those busted coverages or huge chunk plays anymore. And I just wonder if it's still a case where, Tyrann Mathieu is still gaining that trust of everybody and being able to communicate things properly to the secondary.
Yeah, and I mean, you haven't had Marcus May for a majority of this, right? So,
yeah,
if you go back to 2020, when they were trying to incorporate Marcus Williams and Malcolm Jenkins as a tandem, you saw similar stuff in the first 5-6 games of that season, right? If you go back to that Chargers game, I think it was week 5, it was Monday Night Football. They're getting beat over the top by Mike Williams, right? This was something that happened. I think it was the Panthers, and maybe it was week 5, week 6. Teddy Bridgewater comes in, and I think it was DJ Moore running alone down the middle of the field. So these types of breakdowns happen when you're dealing with a new back end. They've also been playing very aggressively. You haven't seen as much kind of shell defense with just a deep safety, 2 deep safeties. You haven't seen that much. You're trying to put pressure on the quarterback, and I think it's part of the reason you're giving up big plays. I would have liked to see them kind of concede 3 points at the end of the first half. Like, if I was being critical of the play calling there, that's what I would say, because you can't allow 7 to try to prevent 3, and that's what they did. I think that they probably just didn't expect the Seahawks to be that aggressive. But when you have a track record of getting burned over the top, teams are going to get aggressive. So your play calling has to match that. Yeah. So, I mean, I think there's stuff to work on.
Yeah, clearly this is far from a perfect game, an outing, but we like you said, an ugly win is better than a pretty loss any day. I'll take that JJP Jr. for sure. Now we just need to do some stringing together of these victories to get back into the mix of things, and get a win next week, and suddenly 3-3 isn't looking so bad in the NFC.
It is not.
I was so surprised that when I got home, I realized the New York Giants beat the Green Bay Packers.
Sure did. Daniel Jones.
As depleted as they were.
Daniel Jones with that stellar 2-for-4 start got it all turned around. They started David Sills at wide receiver today. That's and that's like this is what I said in the pregame show. It's like injuries are an excuse. You got to go find ways to win.
Right, everyone's got
that today. And it's like if you want to look at a team that can have injury excuses, it's the 4-1 New York Giants. Go look at the players they're missing, not the players they're playing, the players they're missing. And the Saints situation feels a lot different. But the Saints, they did what they had to do today, and that's what they're gonna have to do going forward. Stick around on Inside Black and Gold, brought to you by the Lamarck Automotive Complex. There must be a reason. We're gonna come back and hit a bunch of these mailbag questions. They've been rolling in. We've got a lot of good topics. We're gonna hit that and then get out of your hair. Stick around on Inside Black and Gold. Gonna hit a commercial just so I feel good about it.
Hopefully you're not lost.
Sorry, Steve, I cut you off there. What was that?
No, I was like, I see what you're doing.
I'm funny. I'm funny good.
I just mute me with a commercial. But no, I was saying, hopefully you don't get locked in the Superdome.
It's not that late. It's only 6. I'm gonna try. Let's try to get out of here by like 6:45 at the late. Like I need to go home and walk the dog.
He misses you, or she.
Okay. You want to bring us back here?
Sure. Welcome back into Inside Black and Gold. Steve Geller along with Jeff Nowak, going to be diving into some of your questions now in our final segment. A Week 5 victory, bringing the Saints now to 2-3 on the season. Snapping that 3-game losing skid was oh so necessary. And I'm seeing Gary Scott here saying the offense looked better, but considering this Seattle defense gave up 40 to a 1-4 Detroit team last week, I'll reserve my excitement. And I totally get that, Gary. We knew that this Seattle defense was nothing special, but there were obviously plenty of positives to take away from this offense, namely Taysom the Man Hill in this matchup. And like you said in the earlier, Jeff, a really quiet, great day from Alvin Kamara, minus the fumble, of course, but it was good to see him back in the flow after he was dealing with that rib injury.
Yeah, I think, unimpressive might be an understatement when you talk about the Seahawks defense. They are the worst defense in the NFL. Statistically speaking, it's not even close. They didn't, and they didn't let up 40 points to the Lions. Let up 45. You know how many points the Lions scored today?
How many?
0.
Ouch, they got shut out.
The Lions scored so many points last week that if you average their Week 4 and Week 5 score, they have 24.5 points per game, or 22.5 points per game. That's pretty good, right? They got shut out today. But no, yeah, that that's not a good sign. If you're the Seahawks, you're 2-3, but you are playing like 0-5. And I was very surprised by the Seahawks offense. Like, that is a good offense. I was not expecting that. I was expecting it to be like, oh yeah, they scored 48 on the Lions. No, that's a good offense.
I will say about one guy on Seattle's defense, Al Woods, the wily vet, was a problem on that line and caused a lot of disruption. And I think he ended up with a sack and a tackle for loss, but definitely was a problem for the Saints. Caused a lot of disruption and was impressive for the former LSU Tiger.
Yeah, well, they needed to get pressure. If they weren't getting pressure, they weren't stopping anybody.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, that's why, and I said this going in, like, you should look good on offense against this team. And if you don't, that's a problem, And so that's, I expected Andy Dalton to be more impressive. I don't know. Like, he had a solid game, but he didn't do anything in the passing game that got me excited. But at the same time, you do have to go with the caveat of, like, every 4 plays he was coming off the field.
Right. It turned into the Taysom really show, right?
Your rhythm. And plus, like, it wasn't just that Taysom was going on the field. Taysom was going on the field and scoring, right?
Yeah.
Like, he would end drives. Like, it was, and he didn't really have a chance in the red zone. Every time they got in the red zone, it was like, okay, put Taysom in there, and he was just running it in. So, like,
one thing I do question,
you can't hold that against Andy. But yeah,
what's the benefit of them lining up Andy Dalton at wide receiver when Taysom's at center? Do you think we're ever going to see that where he lofts a pass to the quarterback?
Well, he's never going to throw to him. I'm pretty sure they have a rule that says, like, you can't give Andy the ball. That was like their rule with Drew.
Right, exactly. Even though Drew wanted to catch a pass.
Oh yeah, he would have totally asked for it. But okay, so there are reasons why you would put the quarterback out wide versus keeping him off the field, because when he's off the field, Taysom Hill is lining up at quarterback. So that's an advantage to the defense in the sense that they know what to plan for. But it does give you an extra blocker. So when you are going super mega jumbo and you're bringing in Landon Young and Lewis Kidd as eligible receivers, you would not even consider putting Andy Dalton on the field, because they already know when you're going that jumbo, you can guess it's going to be Taysom under center. So you're not going to waste a blocker in that situation. When you are trying to just catch the other team off guard and you're not going jumbo and you're trying to just put him back there and see how they react to it, that's when you would keep Andy on the field, which I don't think they have been doing, but that's when you would consider it, because so you're a defense and you're just reacting to the players in the huddle, right? You are trying to match personnel. And so if you have Andy Dalton and Taysom Hill in the huddle, you are reacting to a personnel that most of the time is going to be, a 11 or 12 personnel, one running back, 2 tight ends. So you aren't necessarily going out there with the personnel to stop a QB power run. So that's why you would do that. And that's what they did more with Breeze than they have been doing with Jameis and Andy. But yeah, that's essentially what you're looking at. Is it's either you want the extra blocker or you want to catch them off guard in a personnel grouping that is not suited to stop it.
Definitely noticed there were just 2 occasions today I noticed that Dalton was still on the field and at wide receiver. I'm like, what's this guy think he's going to do,
Yeah. But no, that's why. It's because when you send Andy out there, they are reacting as if he's going to be the quarterback, so their personnel is going to match that. The second you send Taysom out there without Andy, then you're getting a jumbo defensive look, right? You're getting 3 linebackers and maybe a 4th if they're feeling real soft about it. But yeah. Okay. Another question. Speaking of 3 heads, having 2 defensive coordinators is killing the Saints D. I'm convinced of it. If you want to say they have 2, I would argue they have 3, because neither of the defensive coordinators calls plays. I don't know if I would argue that I question, when you are a head coach, there's a lot going on. And when you're an offensive play caller, a lot of the decisions you have to make in game kind of match up with what you're doing anyway. So I think it's easier to manage when you're trying to call defensive plays and you're trying to make adjustments, you're trying to react on the fly. I think that's much more difficult to do as a head coach. And I think that one of the biggest mistakes a head coach can make is not trusting the people you have put into place to help you to do those things. And I think if the defense continues to go the way it has, and you are still struggling to stop big plays, to get off the field on 3rd down, although today that wasn't the case. They got off the field. I think the Seahawks were 1 for 9 on 3rd down, so that wasn't the case today. But there were some questionable play calls, like I said, that you were playing to prevent 3 points, so you allowed 7 points at the end of the first half. You can't do that. And I think there's the question to be posed that maybe calling the plays as the head coach / whatever you want to call him in Dennis Allen might be hurting the defense because he doesn't have the bandwidth to apply to it that he did in the past. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I'm not really sure if I agree with that. The fact too that the two defensive coordinators are killing the Saints D, and like you said, it's really three if we really want to, come down to it. But
yeah, at a certain point, it's just a title, right? I mean,
yeah,
you always have a secondary coach and a defensive line coach, so it's just a title.
I will say it's interesting that it's really Ryan Nielsen addressing the media on Coordinators Day, and not really.
We've talked to Chris Richard.
Okay, yeah, I guess I've missed a couple times that maybe he's spoken, but it's always been Ryan Nielsen when I've been around. I thought that was maybe odd, and why wouldn't you get both coordinators, kind of thing? But I guess
we have talked. I think we did talk to Chris Richard before week 2.
Okay.
But we have definitely talked to Ryan Nielsen more often than Richard, and that might be a Chris Richard thing. He might not like talking to the media if he doesn't have to. So
yeah,
that might be where you're going. And you don't have a choice with Pete Carmichael. And plus, you don't need to talk to both defensive coordinators every week, so you kind of just have to make a decision. I would be surprised if we don't talk to Richard this week, but
yeah, I would think, like you said, they'll probably just alternate it. And yeah, I was out sick week 2, so definitely miss Richard then.
Yeah, and I don't think that this is that is why you think we've never talked to him, because you're out sick that week. I don't think it's like a too many cooks in the kitchen situation, because like I said, you always have a secondary coach, and you always have a defensive line coach. But I do think that there's a question to be posed that maybe DA shouldn't be calling the defensive plays in the game, because he did delegate that during the preseason, right? So there is, and it was Ryan Nielsen calling those plays. And, you don't want to look at the preseason and say they did anything special because it's the preseason. But I thought the defense looked good in the preseason. So it's like I don't think you have concerns about Ryan Nielsen calling the plays. But again, it's like if this defense turns into a lockdown unit, then we can all look past it. But if they continue to have these kind of notable struggles, especially in big moments, that's when I'll start to question a little louder.
Yeah, and to me, the defense has played pretty decent this season, except in those late game situations when they were maybe a bit, worn down from being on the field so much. But in general, they've during that 3-game losing skid really kept the team in games early on when things weren't going well with this offense starting quickly.
Yeah, let's shift a little bit. Let's talk more about Taysom Hill. VB Saints Pels lady. My reaction, Taysom is the man as a gadget guy, not as a starting QB for the Saints. Love him as he is. And yeah, I think his role, I am perfectly okay with the role he is playing right now. This is the role that it felt like you were getting to in the 2019 season. Remember that Vikings game where he was unstoppable and then they put Drew in and he fumbled, right? But that was like the role he had going into that. And that was when you felt like he was a huge advantage because he was doing things you couldn't stop. They tried to get too much into a quarterback with Taysom Hill, and you lost. And that was partly because you told him you would, and you were trying to do the player a solid and give him his chance, and you gave it to him, and it didn't work. And now you are back to the perfect form of Taysom Hill, which is that QB power, that red zone weapon, and it works. It just works. It worked then. It works now. And the only thing, the biggest thing you have to keep in mind with Taysom is not whether he can execute certain plays, whether he can throw it, he can throw it, whether he can run it, he can run it. It's the deployment between him and the quarterback and how many times you are taking your starting quarterback off the field. I thought the first drive of this game, they didn't handle that well. Taysom came in on 3rd and short, and then he stayed in, handed it to Alvin, and then stayed in on 2nd down. And then you brought Andy on the field after missing 3 plays and said, okay, Andy, 3rd and 5, good luck. And then he missed, and then they punted. And I think that is just setting your starting quarterback up for failure, and like you don't want, there's no value added in having Taysom hand off to Alvin because you're just running into a front that's expecting the quarterback to run, right? That's not an advantage for you. So I don't ever like the idea of 3rd and short and then you're sticking with Taysom on first down unless it is another QB power, right? Because you lose the element of surprise unless you manage to catch them in a really bad personnel, and in that case, you should still be running the quarterback, you know. But when you're going on 3rd and short, you're probably not going to get anything but a heavy personnel. So I think that is a mistake in using him that way and forcing your quarterback to come back on the field in a bad situation. But I thought they did it well the rest of the game. I don't think they did that again. And I think that's kind of the learning process for a Pete Carmichael, kind of figuring this out for the first time as the play caller.
Yeah, was Sean Payton anywhere today watching this game and like being the Leo meme, on the couch pointing at the television? I told you. But yeah, I mean, could there be a 3-way quarterback controversy with this team? I don't think so, but it'll be interesting to hear sports talk this week if folks start clamoring more for more Taysom and less Dalton, along with having Jameis on the bench.
Oh, I'm perfectly fine with all the Taysom you want to give me, but he is not. He should not be the starting quarterback. Like, that is the one thing that this offense is doing right compared to the last couple of years.
I think I agree. We've seen Taysom
in his
as
role,
starter, right?
Is elite. Let's see. Let's go one more good question. And then
what is odd though, it's like out of everything that Taysom has been doing, we just really haven't seen him as the tight end.
Yeah, he hasn't been a tight end at all, and he's still not. I agree. St. John Butler, 3-way QB controversy. Stop that, Steve. I agree with that 100%. That's not what's happening here. But you do have a weapon. You do have, Taysom Hill is the best red zone weapon in the NFL. And I don't think it's that close. He's the best short yardage weapon in the NFL. Anyway, Phoebe Pell's Saints Pell's lady. This is going to be the last thing that we're going to go. Being 1 for 9 on 3rd down doesn't count when you let teams score on 2nd down. Touche. Right. That is a good point. But being 1 for 9 still counts. But it does make it look a little better than it is, because, like you said, they allowed long touchdowns that didn't come on 3rd down. So there is a positive in being able to get off the field on 3rd down, but I think one of the issues is you didn't get to 3rd down enough. I think that's what you're getting at here, and I think you're correct. Is that 9 isn't a high enough number? That number should be a lot higher than 9. And like the Saints had 14 3rd down attempts.
Right.
So like that's a good point. Is if you were, I would rather you be 3 for 14, and not allow 4 touchdowns on 1st or 2nd down, because that's what happened. So yeah, I think that's a good point.
Yeah, and yowza, I'm looking here at the team stats, and Saints allowed 8.1 yards per play to Seattle. You can't do that. It's no bueno.
No, and the only thing that you could say positively about that is, like I said earlier, you didn't leave your defense on the field all day. So that did give you a slight advantage in that regard.
Right.
But the defense kind of played bad. Everyone but Cam Jordan. Cam Jordan is ageless. He is a robot. He was mad that he only got 1.5 sacks instead of 2. That's what he was talking about in his press conference, because apparently DeMario jumped on at the end and they gave him a half sack. He moved into 24th all time.
I got to do my first post-game on the field interview and mentioned to him, you mentioned you ended with 1.5 sacks, and he right away was like, "Oh man, they gave DeMario the half of that. I thought I had 2."
So that's funny, because he came into his press conference and was talking. So you're the one who got him on that wavelength. But yeah, how was that interview?
It was great. I got to ask him 2 questions though, and then he took off. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm done with you.
Yeah, it's nice that you got it though.
Right. No, huge difference for the broadcast, and it actually made me feel worthy of being on the sideline, getting to do a post-game interview. Just something that Sean Payton never allowed over the years, and this is the first time getting to do it this season, and looking forward to more of it for sure.
Yeah, it's great. Hopefully they win some more, so that'll happen.
Yeah, exactly.
We're back here again on Sunday. I do want to tease. So in the film study this week, I'm going to kind of skip a lot of this game, in the sense that I'm not going to just exhaustively go through. I am going to go through the film, but I'm not going to break it all down. But what I want to do is go through and pull out all of the 3rd and short kind of QB power plays for Taysom Hill, and just display how easy it's been. Because like short yardage is not easy in the NFL. Like teams struggle with that. And it's been, I mean, you haven't even wondered. Like, they would get into 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, and I was like, okay, yeah, first down. Like, anytime the Saints are able to get in 3rd and short, you feel so confident. And that's an advantage. And so what they did today that they haven't been able to do in previous games is get in 3rd and short, right? That was the first 3 weeks of the season. It was always 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9. And like, you can't use Taysom Hill in those situations. So I want to kind of go through and pull out a lot of that and look at that. But that's going to be my target for this week. So keep an eye out for that on Wednesdays. Remember, this is Inside Black and Gold. Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. It's brought to you by the Lamarck Automotive Complex. There must be a reason. And yeah, Steve, you got anything else you want to say?
2-3, 500. Here we come, Who Dats.
Yes. Peace, y'all.